Baby Reindeer. Interview with Piers Morgan. Part 9. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Continuing the analysis of Martha / Fiona Harvey in relation to the hit series Baby Reindeer that is screening on Netflix. Piers Morgan, the broadcaster and journalist, managed to ensure that Fiona Harvey, who purportedly is the basis for Martha in Baby Reindeer, appeared on his show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, which was broadcast on YouTube. The interview has since been viewed over 11 million times. This was Fiona Harvey's first public interview since she outed herself as the real-life Martha. There are a number of takeaways, as the word is used, in relation to this, so let's get on and examine them. Harvey wishes to contest the narrative of Baby Reindeer, but she alleges she hasn't actually watched it. One of the first questions that Piers Morgan asked her was whether she'd watched the drama series, and she replied, "Not at all." To my mind, that's a lie. Instead, she's basing her claims on what she'd heard about it from people. Now, I'm not sure who those people are. I should imagine that given the way that she behaves, most people will stay away from her. And, as has been clear from an analysis undertaken so far, she's not somebody that has lots of friends. And therefore, it's questionable who it would be who would tell her about it, bearing in mind, one, she doesn't have many friends, and two, if you did know her and you saw that there was this portrayal of her, knowing how she behaves, would you want to tell her? By the way, you're portrayed as a stalker in a show. I think you'd have, I think you would have understandable concerns and hesitations about doing so. Therefore, the suggestion that she's heard it from other people, to my mind, doesn't stack up, and is demonstrative of her telling yet another lie. She characterised the crime show as sick, obscene, horrifying and misogynistic. She added that it had already taken over enough of her life and she wouldn't want to give credence to something like that by watching it. This seems like a haughty dismissal of it. Might it also be the nullification of a potential threat to control? She insisted that she'd been forced to go public because internet sleuths tracked her down and issued death threats to her. So she doesn't think she has a choice but to engage in this matter, a situation she'd been forced into. It's not my fault. Now she appeared on Morgan's show hoping that he would provide her with a platform and a fair hearing to say her piece. Her main intention was to counter specific aspects of Baby Reindeer that people had told her about. Again, that just doesn't sound true. She's seen it and clearly incensed by what she has witnessed, because her mind tells her that it's not accurate. Her mind tells her that it's not accurate because she's deluded. Is it doing so as a consequence of seeing it through the lens of control, or is it some alternative lens by which it offends her? The most pressing part of the interview was the question of whether Harvey actually stalked Gadd, to which she maintained her innocence, denial. Beyond Baby Reindeer, Gadd has recounted to several publications that the real-life Martha Scott sent him 41,071 emails, 350 hours of voicemails, 744 tweets, 46 Facebook messages, and 106 pages of letters. Harvey insisted that he'd made it all up. That, of course, simply doesn't seem credible. According to her, she did not send Gadd a single text or Facebook message and didn't even have his phone number. Additionally, she said she would have sent him no more than 10 emails in total. That is a denial which appears to have no substance. Harvey only admitted to tweeting at him 18 times, as these are still up on the internet, but she defended it as banter. She also claimed to have only sent Gadd one letter in total after she saw an interview where he spoke about his experience of sexual assault, although she claimed that she didn't know where he lived, and therefore how would she get a letter to him? I suppose she perhaps might have left it at the pub or something like that. Morgan kept trying to press Harvey on the details, but she didn't fold. In fact, she even suggested that the only way Gadd can try to prove her having having sent him voice messages is if he or someone else was secretly taping her in person. Now, that doesn't make sense, because if she'd sent him voice messages, he would have the recordings. It's interesting as well to note that she talks about him secretly taping her in person when, as we know, that's what she was doing to him, which strikes me as a large dose of projection. Beyond the larger allegation of stalking, Harvey also denied several details in relation to baby Reindeer. She said Gadd never offered her a drink or paid for her. She corroborated that they met at a pub called the Holy Arms, where Gadd worked, but she asserted that he was the one who interrupted a conversation she was engaged in to first approach her. Revision of history, perhaps? Moreover, Harvey also said she never saw Gadd turn up at her home and look through her window like the show depicts. She called Baby Reindeer a work of hyperbole, although she kept pronouncing it as hyperbole, which, of course, for somebody who's purportedly a law graduate, calls into question their level of academic achievement. She denied other significant details on the show, like her groping Gadd on the canal, heckling Gadd at his stand-up comedy shows. She said she never went to one, attacking his girlfriend. She claimed he didn't have one, sitting outside his house. She insisted she didn't know where he lived, contacting his parents and going to jail. Denial after denial after denial. Are all those denials being issued as part of her attempting to nullify the threat to control that's posed by them? Or is it quite simply she has a consistency as a consequence of operating in this massive delusion? She emphasised that she never admitted to stalking Gadd, nor has she ever been charged with an offence. While Gadd has acknowledged fictionalising details for Baby Reindeer, the point of contention is the characterisation of Harvey's behaviour as stalking and harassment. For Harvey, these false characterisations of her are very defamatory and career damaging. As a result, she said she'll be suing Netflix, threat, Richard Gadd, threat, the Daily Mail, and anyone else claiming these allegations are true. Harvey asserted that she wouldn't be taking legal action if these supposed 41,000 emails were out there, and is willing to have all the evidence put through the scrutiny of a court. She said that neither Netflix nor Gadd have reached out to her, and they are falsely claiming that this is all a true story, which she maintains it is not. Is the maintenance of this denial part of a delusion as a consequence of her needing control? Or is it simply a delusion that has manifested from something else, and she is consistent because in her world these things simply didn't happen? Claims about the veracity of the story are not much of a concern, as both Gadd and Netflix have acknowledged that Baby Reindeer is a loosely adapted and fictionalised version of these events. An added complication in such defamation allegations is that the show never explicitly named Harvey, nor had the intention of disclosing her identity. In fact, Gadd issued a statement urging viewers not to speculate on the real identities of the show's characters. Given that the show never directly identified her, these parameters are also not problematic. However, the only factor that might give Harvey grounds for a case is if it can be demonstrated that Gadd and Netflix failed to conceal her real identity in Baby Reindeer. The resemblance between Martha and her real-life counterpart, coupled with the incorporation of actual tweets from Harvey that could be easily searched online, enabled her identification. Consequently, the primary problem might be the revelation of her true identity to the public, especially as Harvey engages in such public interviews, claiming to be the real-life character. In the course of the interview, Harvey flipped the narrative and suggested that Gadd was actually in love with her. This is something that she's consistently maintained and is part of the delusion because he's quite clearly not in love with her. She confirmed that the hang your curtains innuendo from Baby Reindeer was true and that he asked her to sleep with him, to which she said no. She claimed to have had a boyfriend at the time and stated that she never liked Gadd. "I don't fancy little boys with no jobs," she said to Morgan, dismissively. Harvey also contended that Gadd was never really her friend either, and that their interaction was never more than Scottish banter. Thus she seeking to downplay the extent of the interactions. This clearly is a response to the suggestion that she's a stalker, a suggestion that she doesn't like, a suggestion that she doesn't see herself as. And this is interesting. because it shows that there are, in essence, periods of lucidity with her. If she was still caught up in the delusion that they were in a relationship, she would be saying, yes, we were in a relationship, it wasn't stalking. But the fact is, she recognises there is no longer a relationship, although she believed that there was one to begin with. But interestingly, because it's being suggested that they were in a relationship and it was stalking, she understands enough to see how that plays to a viewership and an audience. And therefore, could it be that she sees that as a threat to control and thus she issues these denial? That the delusion of the relationship is not so strong as her to say, yes, we had a relationship, yes, I was in love with him, yes, we had a wonderful time together and he broke my heart. Instead, she's saying there was never any relationship to begin with. That's completely at odds with what Baby Reindeer shows and the apparent evidence in support of that proposition. Thus, she operates within such a way as to be deluded that they were in a relationship, but when it has ended and it was suggested that she was stalking him, she moves to reject that suggestion rather than going along with it, rather than maintaining, yes, there was a relationship. So she's capable of revising that history. Is she revising this history instinctively? Or is she doing so knowing that she's telling lies? It certainly seemed to me in the course of this interview that there was hesitancy on her part in numerous instances, a lot of before she spoke, which suggested that she was having to think about what she had to say, and suggested to me that she might well have been aware that she was telling lies. Certainly Piers Morgan, post this interview, said he believed that she was telling lies. She maintained that she only ever met Gadd 2 to 3 times more than a decade ago, and that she only knew him for a maximum of 2-3 months. When Morgan later challenged her on this, she said she could not have met Gadd more than 5 or 6 times in total. For Harvey then, Gadd must be psychotic and is mentally unwell himself. She even suggested that Gadd may have invented the experience of rape and sexual assault he portrayed in the show and discussed in a previous stand-up comedy show, Monkey See, Monkey Do. Among all the things Harvey denied on the Piers Morgan show, she did admit to having a reindeer toy as a child. She added that when she was once hanging out with Gadd, they saw a reindeer at a store around Christmas time and Gadd had recently shaved his head. That's why she joked that he looked like a baby reindeer, she said. But she couldn't imagine that would form the title of Netflix's Baby Reindeer and Gadd's original stage show. Harvey recounted how 5 years ago, in 2019, she first saw news about a play titled Baby Reindeer at the Edinburgh Festival and found it preposterous. Now, seeing the Netflix show have the same title, she questioned why Gadd has fixated so much on this name and joked that it's as though she's basically written most of the show herself. That's grandiosity. There's a degree of envy that he has this show, that he's getting some fame and she's not, and that she feels that she ought to be acknowledged. Harvey admitted that at one point in her life, she had up to 6 different email addresses, which, of course, might be something that a stalker would have. When Morgan questioned her about this, she insisted that it's normal, and she likes to use some email addresses for utilities and others for close friends. For instance, she explained she prefers to receive information about her electricity bill on one email address, work on another, and personal communications on yet another. There is a degree of plausibility with regard to that explanation. Harvey also revealed that she has 4 different phones, justifying it by saying she likes to keep communicating with different people on different devices. That does seem rather suspicious. People who often have 2 phones tend to have one personal, one work. Any more than that, and it becomes questionable. I've told you in the past, I operate 5 different phones for lots of different reasons. While she attempted to justify these things as normal, these admissions raised suspicions about the truth of her claims. Although she kept denying sending 41,000 emails, she also defended the idea of doing that, saying that it doesn't necessarily mean it would be stalking, thus demonstrating, of course, that she is caught between the truth of what happened, namely, She knows that she sent them, but recognising how that looks and therefore backing away from it. She said it could be regular communication between colleagues, a husband and wife or friend, she suggested. She was accused of inappropriate behaviour as a trainee at a law firm in 1997. The lawyer Laura Walker and her husband Jimmy Ray, a member of Parliament, claimed that Harvey was incapable of behaving herself and made other workers so uncomfortable and frightened that they had to be issued with personal alarms. Harvey was then served with an interim interdict to stop her from contacting Walker or Ray. However, while Harvey admitted to joining as a trainee, she alleges that she was the one who walked out, revision of history, and that she went to court to get the interim interdict. Harvey thus maintained that she was not served with the interim interdict in Scotland and that Walker and Ray made it up because she was up for parliamentary selection that year. Morgan challenged her on this and asked why different people in unrelated incidents would accuse her of harassment and inappropriate behaviour. But Harvey did not engage with his questions deflection and just outright denied everything, denial. Harvey claimed that she's currently in a relationship with a man she's been with for 5 years. She added that this man is a lawyer too, just like her. This is likely to be part of her delusion, and that he also fully believes her side of the story and supports her unconditionally. However, neither of them will be represented in a legal case against Netflix, Gadd and others. For that, Harvey and her boyfriend are seeking other legal counsel, she said. Harvey also stated that she's had several relationships with men in the past as well, and that she rejects Gadd's portrayal of her as a loner. Well, as I've explained in previous parts, her social media behaviour certainly does support her behaviour as a loner. She clarifies that she has a lot of friends and never got the impression that Gadd feels sorry for her. Harvey hinted at the possibility that she might write a book about all her experiences with Richard Gadd, although she said she has better things to do with her time. Harvey said she last had contact with Gadd several years ago and deeply regrets walking into the Holy Arms bar and ever meeting with him in the first place. Now, she said, she is off X, Facebook and other social media and feels scared to Google the BBC, the Daily Mail and other news outlets out of fear of reading something about herself. That, of course, is a lie. As I demonstrated in the previous part, she's still on social media and actively posting things by way of reaction to events such as this interview. Ultimately, Harvey said she resents Gadd and Netflix for profiting off lies that they are presenting as truth. She said she wants Gadd to leave her alone. To people who still doubt her, she wants them to look at all the promotional material for Baby Reindeer and how Gadd talks about his experiences. For Harvey, she sees him as a liar, but she knows she can't change people's minds. All she can do is rebut his narrative for herself. I think you should look at him saying I'm some sort of mental case, she said, and judge for herself. When she was asked about her upbringing, she said that it was happy, that she had it was impoverished but middle-class upbringing, which doesn't make any sense. She said she's got a sister, that her mother worked incredibly hard, that her parents got divorced when she was 9, but her mother worked like a Trojan. She was asked if either of her parents were still alive, and she confirmed that her mother was. Piers Morgan asked her how does she feel about that, and she said, I've not talked to her about it. I'm hoping she'll have just seen the Scottish headlines and that's it. She's not an internet freak or anything like that. She has no idea what's happened to you, then, asked Morgan. She then says she'll know a bit, and she was very, very angry with Laura Walker for doing the original article when I went for Parliament. You told your mother about it? No, and that may seem strange, but I don't want to worry her. I'll tell her I've been on the show when it airs. I don't want her to worry. Piers Morgan then says, let me ask you that The Sun reported an interview with Laura Ray, who you've referenced, who accused you of inappropriate behaviour whilst you worked with her. Now, the background of this is that you came into contact with the late Glasgow MP Jimmy Ray, who died aged 78 in 2013, and his solicitor wife Laura, who was 62 when she was a former Labour Party member. She goes on to say that Mrs. Ray say that she gave her an Aberdeen University law graduate. Piers Morgan asked, did you graduate from Aberdeen? She confirms, yes, with a law degree, and that she had a trainee legal role with the Lawrence Partnership in 1997. Piers Morgan asked her whether that was true, and she said, yes, it was called something Lawrence, but I forget the name of the firm. Piers Morgan states, but that's all true. She gave you a trainee job. She explains that, actually, in fact, she was lured away from another firm. She headhunted me, which, of course, seems like a revision of history, given the fact that the evidence of Mrs. Ray was that Fiona Harvey, Muir as she was then, was peppering law firms with applications in the expectation of being taken on. She said that she headhunted me from another firm because she needed somebody to do employment law, and I'm pretty good. Delusion and grandiosity. She said, I'm pretty good at employment law, so she said that she wanted me. However, Piers Morgan said, but she had to sack you days later because you were completely incapable of behaving yourself. She then explains, in response to that they were really rude to me. Half the Labour Party had been up there at one point, and she said that following that, well, obviously they were problematic. She then goes on to state that, or rather, Morgan asks, you then harassed her. You were then known as Fiona Muir. Obviously, you said Muir Harvey. And Mrs. Ray said she was so frightened that she issued workers at her firm with personal alarms, and you were served an interim interdict to stop you from contacting the lawyer or her politician husband. Harvey responded saying, she messed up. I know, and I've still got to speak to David about that and the author of that Daily Record article. She messed up because I went into the Court of Session at the High Court in Edinburgh to get court-wide interdicts. An interdict, an injunction in Scotland and England, because I was going to move to London anyway. She mucked up. So, again, this explanation that she provides here doesn't seem to make a lot of sense and is somewhat word salady. In the interview, it moved on to questioning her about her university degree, which provided further evidence as to the fact that she may well be telling lies. Morgan said, you've got a degree in law, so you're obviously very bright. How did you do at school? She responds, stating, I've got a photographic memory, which is something she said previously. So it's at least consistent in relation to that particular delusion. She said, I was top of the school apart from the science. I was B. I went to the science person and got the most marks because you can get 99%. Morgan asked, how many O and A levels did you end up with? She said she got 6 hires. And they were 2 X's and Y's. They were all sort of, most of were A's, and the ones which were when the A was the top of the thing. So she suggests that she's very clever, although it's rather garbled in relation to her explanation. Morgan pushes her, saying, with your law degree, what grade did you get? She says, oh, not bad. I mean, oh, all right, you know. I just did an audit degree and then a diploma in legal practice. What grades did you get? All right grades. But, you know, I went out partying. I didn't do an honours degree, so, you know, just standard grades. This was quite interesting because, of course, the degree classification system would be third, 2-2, 2-1, or a first. And if you've got a degree, you'd certainly know what the grade was. So either she hasn't got a degree and is lying about it, although it's evident that she started to study for one, or that she doesn't want to reveal the grade because it wasn't particularly good. She does demonstrate that she's able to know about the approach to becoming a lawyer by doing a law degree and then a legal practice course, which back then was the way that you would become a trainee solicitor if you were able to get a training contract at a firm. But Morgan repeatedly pressed her in relation to what her grades were, but all she could keep saying was it wasn't bad, and that I did an ordinary degree and then a diploma in legal practice. He asked, what degree did you do? A law degree. She said, I did a law degree with 13 subjects, 13 law subjects, so it wasn't the CPE or anything. That's the conversion examination if you do a non-law degree to become a lawyer. I also have from down here, but it was 13 law subjects. Piers Morgan asked, is this from Aberdeen University? She said, yeah. So he asked, so what degree did you end up with? She said, a law degree, and then I did a politics degree after that, politics, women's studies. I did substantially better than that. I did more work, you know. I think in our day when you went to university, you didn't. Morgan then presses her again, saying, well, there's a reason you say you've got a photographic memory, but what grades did you get? And again, this supposed photographic memory lets her down, and she says, all right grades. I mean, not top of the year or anything you get when you do a degree. You get a, you're asking me what grades I got, 13 subjects. I can't remember. And basically, here we see where she struggles to explain her degree, which demonstrates that she's lying and undoubtedly knows that she is, either because she doesn't have a law degree or the results weren't that good and she knows that and she wants to hide behind it. The interview certainly demonstrated a number of inconsistencies, but also consistencies in her delusion. There are clear lies being told by her. In some instances, it became apparent that she was aware that she was telling lies also. It certainly didn't paint her in a particularly good light, and it just evidenced that she maintains that she didn't stalk, that she was utilising this as a platform. But was she using this as a platform because she sees the world through a lens of control and needs to nullify it? Or were her behaviours driven by something else? Well, we're going to pull it all together in part 10 as I bring you the conclusion as to what Martha is. Join me there.